Hello, everyone. Welcome to Chasing a Murder. And I know finally we are getting out part 62 of Life Beyond the Grave, which is attached to the Lori Vallow case. So we've been learning a little bit about Lori Vallow's interest in the teachings and doctrines. These teachings are coming from a very select group that surround Chad Daybell and the AVAL community. And one of those things that are starting to become popular is the topic, the Church of the Firstborn. And I'll go into more detail on that later. Now, remember the Hebrews Foundation, they're actually colliding with the Abraham, that community, which is about Isaiah and the end days. And around December 31st of 2017, they have a post. I wanted to share this with some of you because I thought you guys might find it interesting. They write, and this is Preparing the People, this series is now unavailable. We had hoped to keep it on sale until December 31st of 2017. All of the Hebrews materials that we had filmed will be repurposed and made available for a later date. So they're having to change something. And I haven't had time to dig into that more, but I'm thinking this is something that the church is kind of saying, hey, you're going to have to change this up a bit. And if you had already purchased the series or volumes previously, you still have access to them until other materials are made available. This is the beginning of also the preparingthepeople.com. So for those of you who are wondering, was Preparing the People, were they focused on the end days? And as far as I can tell, based off the research I have at this time, a lot of their interest, their material was based on the end days. Nancy and Michael James of Color in My Media, they're actually reaching out to different areas all over the Mormon state, especially Idaho and Utah. They're collaborating for the future, and they're selecting leaders to help them establish this new community. And one of those people, and we'll talk more about this as well, will be Melanie Gibb. So what is this Isaiah Institute doing? Well, what we're learning is Dr. Galiti actually compares current documented dreams, visions, and near-death experiences. So you have to wonder, is he looking at Chad's work? Is he looking at David Warwick's work? Is this why you're seeing so many of these dreams and visionaries coming out of the woodwork? Because they seem to be coming out in the boatloads. He's using those dreams and visions or end time predictions and comparing them with the book of Isaiah or the prophecy of Isaiah. In this post, they take notice that many persons today are having visionary experiences that suggest Isaiah's prophecies are nearing fulfillment. So while a lot of people are focused on Chad's teachings and they're focused on, Lori, they're not looking at the background. And this is what's going on in the background that many of these people are following. And it just seems like to me that Color My Media is fixing to stoke that fire. You're going to take these guys that are not, I don't want to say it rudely, but, kind of infamous, and giving them an opportunity to be more famous. We already know that these are people who have tried to make their way up into the church, but haven't made their way to the place they want to be. But now there's new opportunities arising. And it is the beginning of the filling of the head. I'm not blaming Color My Media, but I am saying they didn't realize that the air that they put into these people's heads nearly would make them explode. It's around this time in November 2016 that Lori is emailing Julie Rowe. That's according to Melanie Gibb. So Lori Vallow is not a fan of computers or the new technology, but she's having to learn in order to keep up with the guys like Julie Rowe. She has to learn this stuff so that she can keep up with AVAL, BMO, and to be able to communicate by email. What we are told is she's actually having to read a book in order to learn how to email. So everyone else is on this Facebook and all these kinds of things, but Lori's just now learning that she's going to have to be more involved with these social networking sites so that she can keep up with everyone else. So remember, Color My Media or Preparing the People, it's in its infancy around 2015 through 2018. And around the end of 2018 on is when it starts to really fire up. And the guy that's pushing this Isaiah Institute, well, he's been studying or researching Isaiah for 42 years. And he's also accepted these books written by individuals, comparing them to his work, the near death experiences, in books like Visions of Glory. And guys, the research has been so massive because there's so many people. I haven't been able to finish the background on this, but I'll give you what I have. Nancy and Michael James, they know Chad Daybell from the town he lived in before. And they say later on, and we're going to talk about that too, that they are following Chad to Rexburg because they have heard that that's the place to be as the end days approach. And as more and more people stumble upon these websites, the membership begins to grow. And trust me, there are other places that you can go to get more information, like Moody Media. I'm not going to be able to cover all of them. I think I mentioned this, but I want to make sure. It's really hard to put in order, as you know. Eric, at some point, is seeking feedback from everyone that had been or attended Julie's speaking events. And they're wanting people to, if they have a testament or had a special experience, they need them to share that with them. And to be honest, Julie had quite a few speaking events. And according to this list, it starts off where she's at a lot of the church functions, but slowly but surely, as we get into 2015 and towards the end of 2016, she's having to find or sponsor her own places to speak. So remember, we don't have an exact date, at least I don't yet, but Lori Vallow is now back in Arizona. And at AVAL, well, Christopher Parrott has actually taken over the site. He's charging membership fees, and many near-death experience authors and visionaries, well, they're creating their own little site within AVAL, and they're doing pretty good. Lori Vallow is completely obsessed with the warnings from Julie Rowe and Chad Daybell. And some of her friends, like April Raymond, say they really didn't see the red flags during this time, yet they mentioned that they hear her talking about end days or driving over a cliff. This wasn't something that was here and there. According to witnesses, she's talking about end of times constantly. So you can imagine that her children like Colby and Tylee Ryan, maybe even her little brother JJ, what do these kids think when they hear these things coming from their mother? Are they scared, or are they a little bit more aware than she is? That's what it seems like to me. They didn't seem too worried about it. And according to April Raymond, these are some of the things she says. She was 100% into the end times, the end of the world, and she would tell me, no, you really got to start preparing for the end of the world. You got to start getting your stuff together. She would order stuff all the time, and she would tell me I needed to read all of these books. So Tylee is having a hard time since the move back to Arizona. According to April, to her, Lori seemed like the mother of the year because Tylee missed her friend in Hawaii. Lori would actually pay for the airline ticket for the friend to fly back to Arizona to hang out with Tylee so that Tylee would feel better. April mentions there is stuff that Lori's buying. She doesn't really go into the detail what those things are, but I guess we can kind of guess based off of what Adam had to say. She was buying loads of storage stuff for preparing for end days. According to several witnesses that can also describe Lori's personal thoughts and feelings, is one of those being on the topic of divorce. We'll talk more on that later, but she had some sort of shame going on with the amount of times that she's married. So now we're definitely into 2017, and the Julie Rowe show has actually debuted, and her topics are very interesting. She will talk about the 144,000 the firstborn, the gathering, multiple probations, and wars led by translated and celestial beings. So you got to think back, what were Chad's books about and what is Julie Rowe's podcast about? So from here on, you need to compare what Chad and Lori are teaching and learning and where the majority of that is coming from. As Lori is listening to Julie's podcast while she's telling her friends and family about him because she loves the show, she believes that everybody should have the opportunity to be forewarned. She continues to buy more and more food storage, preparing for end days, and even sending them to family members. She reached out more and more to her friends and family, telling them we need to prepare. There's scary times approaching. But I think she starts to get upset when she notices that some people think she's crazy. Because Adam Cox, Lori Vallow's brother, his wife, she's even receiving stuff from Lori, and she's saying, I just wish she would quit singing us all this stuff. So obviously there's members of the family that are doubting if Lori's okay. But when this story first began, this isn't something you heard. I think that's important for understanding the truth of this story. Lori was scared around this time, and she was following Julie Rowe as one of her main go-to people, along with Chad Daybell. And so she was doing these things before she met Chad Daybell. She was interested in translated beings. She was interested in the celestial realm. She was interested in the church of the firstborn, the 144,000. And I believe, my opinion is this part, I believe that she felt like she needed to get in with the right people who knew about these events. And she had to look out for her family. And as she got on that train, at some point, and we'll talk about that a little bit later, her intentions switched dramatically. And that's why I'm about the truth on this, guys. I think we are to share the truth of who these people are and, what they do, who they really are, and what are their true intentions. I really feel like Lori felt alone, even with her family, especially with Adam, with what she was interested in and getting into. So remember, she has a few family members jump on her train, and I'm saying train to be nice. She's recruiting. And people, if you really look at it, she started recruiting when she was in Hawaii. Now, also, let's talk about, just to make sure that I cover this, because I'm afraid I'll forget. You know by now, if you've followed this series, that Lori Vallow has been married at this time 4 times. The first husband, the second husband, so to be William, another guy I don't want to mention, then Joseph Ryan, finally Charles Vallow. Now, she's had very unsuccessful relationships for various reasons. And I know I've shared this with you before. I believe that Lori Vallow truly loved Colby Ryan's father, but he wasn't going places, and that wasn't working out for her. Because after that, she targets certain men. And I haven't had time to go deeper into Joseph Ryan's financial background. Maybe one of you can, and you can make a video and then say, hey, Debbie, I did it. Here, check this out. But I do believe that he wasn't able to keep up with her financially. We know that they did go through a bankruptcy during their divorce. And Joseph Ryan just kind of lived the lower life after the divorce. We believe that the divorce took pretty much everything he had to fight the problems he was dealing with. And I believe that had to do with he didn't want to pay her too much money, so he just didn't get that better job that he planned on having. He was going through hell with Lori. Though during this time, we know that she's slacking off a little bit, but he's also not seeing his daughter very often. Sadly, Tylee Ryan's health conditions are on and off and come suddenly and disappear suddenly, at least according to a witness. For me, I was always concerned about that because we learned that doctors never could figure out what caused that. And knowing that Lori is capable of feeding someone she loves something without them knowing it through other witnesses, and we will talk about that more later, makes you wonder, could she have done this to her own daughter? That's complete speculation, but according to her mother, well, her mother believes that Lori wasn't capable of doing any of this, but turns out she might have been wrong. Of course, we still have to assume that she's innocent until proven guilty. But as a parent, that is your job to believe in your kids and love your kids and protect your kids. And it's difficult to see what other people see sometimes. So it's important for you guys to understand that Lori does not want to get another divorce. The reason for that is it makes her look bad. And the more difficult things are, the more Charles tries, but she's never, ever, ever happy anymore. As we push into 2017 and 2018, that relationship becomes more unsteady and more rocky. There are more arguments. Remember, there were arguments starting back in Hawaii between Charles and the kids, Charles and Lori. It's just been a mess. And one thing that we learn is there's a lot of family drama within the Cox. So if Lori's having a difficult time, well, she tells her mom a lot about this, and her family is very supportive of her, and she knows this. Lori is very capable of putting on a show when she needs to, making her family stand out, and when she sets goals, she's going after them. And it does seem to go, she'll get whatever she's into, she's obsessed with. She was obsessed with every breakup except for one or two. She was very obsessed with Joseph Ryan. She's obsessed with whatever she gets into. So if she eats a certain way, works out a certain way, things that she does through her church, the way that she dealt with her family. And now that she's come across this group, all of those obsessions she had before, well, they're fading away, and she's gaining new obsessions. In these last few years, it's been hectic. And guess who she's getting closer to? Around this time, she's starting to build a better relationship with Melanie Boudreaux, her niece. We don't have time to keep going into everybody too much individually, but just know that Melanie Boudreaux, she's married to the man of her dreams, Brandon Boudreaux. The two have several children, and they seem to have a perfect family. But Melanie Boudreaux is starting to listen to her Aunt Lori about the end days approaching, and nor her or her husband will have any idea where this path will lead them. But for now, in this time frame, they're a normal family. They go and they run marathons, they go to church, they work, and they love their family. And Melanie Boudreaux, she's actually an outgoing girl. She likes to have fun. She's goofy, and she's not scared to tangle with the guys. Meanwhile, it's at this point that Lori says her turning point is to the temple. I think we learned that last series, and that she has her temple recommend it's either that or she's going to commit murder, and that is murder against Joseph Ryan. Chad Daybell and Julie Rowe truly believe that when they go behind the veil, they use telepathic communication, and that their time here on Earth is an individual life with a path of agency. They also believe that in their own path here on Earth or other planets, they have several mortal lifetimes. This also means that you will experience birth and death multiple times. And when they start talking about their past lives, it seems that people like Lori, Julie, Chris, Chad, etc., their past lives are always extravagant. They're always some type of famous or leader, contrary to their personal lives today. Though you experience multiple lives, you will continue to be connected to your same ancestors because that is part of your DNA bloodline. And here's the problem with this. Many people in this group, well, they'll run into a problem with identity. It seems there will be two people that claim to be Moroni in a past life. Mary Magdalene. They also say that you will stay connected to your family today, yesterday, and the day before that, once upon a lifetime. What's interesting is when they make their trip to the spirit realm, Julie says you have giants that guard you, and that these giants can be up to 50 feet tall. So, very similar to the giants in Enoch. She also believes that there are portals, and that those portals are inside other portals. Does that sound familiar to you guys? It should, because it will be familiar to how Chad and Lori connect later on in this story. So, Julie teaches classes on these topics. She also does podcasts on these topics, but she seems to lack to understand the physics or the backstories of all this. And not only that, her beliefs suggest that she believes that she may be a supporter of the fallen ones or the Nephilim, a mixed species of humans and gods. So these giants that she talks about, well, they can come from the Book of Giants, a Jewish book that basically expands the creation to the end of the time type narrative of the Hebrew Bible, loaded with warnings of doom. It also ties the ancient prophet Enoch closer with his generally recognized storyline. It's important for you to understand this because of Alex Cox and all their supporters later on in this story. Remember, Lori refers to her brother Alex Cox later on as a protector or a watcher. In this book, they're referred to as the Holy Ones. They rebelled against heaven, and these watchers bred with humans, creating the giants. The offspring that these beings make, well, they're considered to be corrupt offspring because they fought against God and his righteous followers, whose numbers diminished as the world was overwhelmed with corruption and evil. And as those generations repopulated, well, they become more wicked over time. In Enoch, they're also referred to as bastards. So in the time of Enoch, you got to think this prophet, he's walking the earth at a time when people do not believe in God anymore, kind of like today, guys. They also do not believe in sinning. They do not believe in heaven or hell. And the Ten Commandments did not exist during Enoch's time. And people, well, they would murder, lie, steal, and, well, that didn't seem to matter. So as we see the world, they turn away from God. You got to think that this is how Chad, Lori, and Julie, they see things. The world is turning wicked. And while you have to agree with them, it has turned quite wicked. At some point, Enoch will transform these sinners into righteous followers of God, and he builds a grand city of glory for them, also known as Zion. God shows Enoch visions of all the humanity on earth. Enoch's visions show the people of the city going to heaven, but the wicked stay here on earth, left behind to endure the tragic days. And after all the righteous followers are safe in Zion, God said he would send a flood to sweep away the wicked and the sinners, and that only one family would be safe. And of course, you probably know who that is. That would be Noah and his family, the story of Noah's Ark. But Enoch, he saw everything happen through visions. And at some point, we're just skipping around here a little bit because it's a big story. The city of Zion was the city of the most righteous and glory. And for that, God would visit them often. But one day, God called this city to heaven, and the city just disappeared. If you would like to read more on this, well, you can. You can read the Book of Enoch or the Book of Watchers and get a whole lot more detail. What I've found interesting in this book is they don't always speak of one God. There's actually mention of many gods. There are also other accounts that the sons of God are actual celestial beings who have come down from the stars in the heavens to breed with the human women. And in my research, this refers as these beings being more of a male, which also tells me that Chad and Julie also believe this. It also suggests that Adam and Eve, the first story of humanity, that Adam might be a giant or a Nephilim. And here's the thing. So they believe that once God becomes unhappy with the wickedness of the human race, he decides that he's just going to destroy the world and kill everyone. So I want to do a brief overview of that. I think we've already covered it once. But guys, when you do this many stories and research as much as I do, it's hard to keep up with it all. And so this is where also we learned that Lori's just constantly talking about death. And now her interests have turned into prepping, warning, and fear. And many people out there are actually feeding this fear. Chad Daybell, for instance, gaining cult-like characteristics as time moves forward. Their ability to speak to angel is increasing around this time as well. And for Chad Daybell, he's gaining more and more gifts as each day passes. He's able to read the light and dark auras that surround humans. He's learning to astral project or travel outside of his body. Yet we don't know exactly his wife's stance on all these gifts and beliefs. The fact that he's picking up this energy spirit healing from his good friend Julie Rowe, where he understands we have our body, and inside that body we have a spirit energy. You got to remember the Mormon belief system. They believe that they are an energy before they are born to this earth. Contradictory, they believe that not only do you have energies that come from the universe to be born on earth, on the other side of the spectrum, they still believe your genetics can play a huge role in how strong your energy body is. So these energy healers believe that your body can lose its ability to heal on its own, and that you can control the energy within your body to heal. By clearing the blocks in our spirit body, the body can begin to heal. And this is considered spirit medicine or energy medicine. But this can get quite taboo depending on which sessions you take, who you follow. I just wanted to mention this a bit quick so that you guys could get a little bit of an understanding of the energy sessions that Julie Rowe is doing. She's connecting it with her religion. And Chad Daybell's taking what he's learning from that and turning it into something completely of his own concoction. Julie Rowe is as well, to be fair. But here's the most dangerous part of all of this. It's around January 2nd of 2017, and you'll hear mention of denying atonement. And if you follow the breadcrumbs to that, well, that's going to be Julie as well as Julie Rowe. They're starting to believe that you're going to have to atone for your own sins instead of saying that Christ has already atoned for our sins. And this atonement issue has an important part to play in everybody that had lost lives attached to this case. As we move forward in this timeline, Julie Rowe, she's talking about the Wasatch wake up. And before we close out here, I want you guys to remember that and take time to go look into that. I wanted to do more research for you guys, but we're never going to get through this series if I cover every single bit. Her podcast is based on that somewhere in this part of the timeline, and she seems to have a decent following. According to information online, October 2017, her first episode was out, and there was about 14,000 views. And then shortly, she'll be coming out with more podcasts with topics like Rising Above the Flames, My Untold Story. And she's making these podcasts like she always does with her buddy Eric J. Smith. It's around April of 2017, and Adam Cox, Lori Vallow's brother, and her nephew Zach come into town and pay Lori a visit. At least according to Zach, he said he remembers that he stayed back with Lori and that they were hanging out at her house. And Lori tells Zach about the books that she's been reading lately. They are about the doomsday and second coming of Jesus. Most of these books that she shows him are by a guy by the name of Chad Daybell. Zach also confirms that she was watching Julie Rowe podcast. He said while he was there visiting with another cousin and JJ, Lori tells them if they watch our R-rated movie, there's always an evil spirit screaming in your face, encouraging it. I think Zach's response to her, he says, "Wow, that's crazy," tells us a lot of how they seen Lori. I think they all knew that Lori was on her own train. If she wasn't hurting anyone, it wasn't a big deal. Thanks to Adam and Zach, we get an idea of who Lori is. And I think that they actually know by what she's teaching and learning. And these concerns start before she actually meets Chad Daybell. So share below, do you think that she was kind of off on her own train before Chad or after Chad? I think myself that Lori did have a lot of issues even before she started reading Chad Daybell's books. Okay, I got to close out. Please don't forget about Jasmine Robinson, Dulce, and Summer Wells. And guys, please, I ask you kindly to subscribe, like, and comment. You can share. Tell people about this channel. I would really appreciate it. Thank you to everyone who has been a support. I love you guys, and I'll see you guys.